Right, so after what feels like ages and ages and ages, we are back out with the Sonubaits cameras. And I say this for flipping every video that we do, and I say we'll do something a little bit different, and this is the case yet again, in that I'm going to sort of cover a match I've just fished, or a series of matches I've just fished, and in particular around at Barston, which is where we are today, sat on the bestest peg in the world, 124 at Barston Lakes. And I want to go through a few things that I learned that helped me through these last couple of matches I've fished on here. It's been a massive big thing, and ultimately what it helped was to make me win this year's UK Angling Championships, which is one I've never ever won before, and one very, very prestigious one that has some ridiculous names on the trophy. So yeah, for this one, it was all about winning the title for me. So I put a lot of effort in this year. Actually involved a practice session at this particular place, which, if anyone knows me, I'm not one for practicing at all. But for here, I felt it needed a little sneaky day. So we came down here to Barston, had a play about with a few things, and definitely learned a few key tactical aspects that made a big, big difference come the match itself. So, as I say, it was the UK Champs. That was the event I was fishing. We'd had 3 rounds previous. The way it works, the UK Champs, is a section points, very much a festival type format. But you fish 4 different venues up and down the country. It's pretty much one a month, is it? Yeah, May, June, July, August, one a month pretty much. And things have gone really well. I mean, the first round, we've been at Hallcroft. I'd won my section there. The second round had been at Makins, where I'd actually managed to win the match by drawing a very, very, very good peg. And the third round had been at Rookery Waters, which is somewhere I've never been before. And I came second, not in the match, I came second in my section. So a brilliant day, proper venue, Rookery, a lot of fish. I was second with 190 odd pound. So lovely day. And going into the very last round, which is held at Barston Lakes every single year, that is where the last round is held for the UK Champs. I was second. I was on 4 points. The leader, Tom Calladine, was on 3 points. So really, really good chance, I mean, of finishing in the top 10, or if not, up there at winning. That's what I wanted to do. The ultimate goal was to win it. That's what it was about. So yeah, I wanted to put a bit of time in. So we came up here, had a little play. Barston's very much, if I'm honest, it's a moody venue. It really, really is. But there's a lot of fish to be caught. So you have to work out whatever area you fish, or whatever area you draw, you have to fish in the correct way for that area. It's no good rocking up at Barston with plan A for wherever you draw. It's simply not going to work like that. You have to mess about a little bit and choose the right methods for the certain areas, because you've got venues like where I'm sat today, 124 up to probably about 120, probably the best carp area of the lake, where you're fishing for massive big things. So much more patient approaches is needed there. Whereas once you move past the island, I'm getting wet toes because I'm paddling in the water here. As soon as you move past the island, skimmer fishing comes into it a lot. There's just, for whatever reason, the carp don't seem to be up there in the numbers that they are down this end of the lake. So you can have a phenomenal day skimmer fishing, up to £100 potentially, of these lovely skimmers that there's literally billions and billions of in this lake. So you need to work out what you're doing, depending what area, and fish in the right way. You cannot be a stubborn angler at Barston. And then as well, you have to be in the right area in your section for wherever them carp want to be, or wherever the most of the skimmers want to be. So anyway, on the day I drew 32, which is over on the other side over there. I think it's just out of shot. Oh no, you might be close, where I'm just on the point of the island. But what they do is, once you get to 32 or 33, depending on the day, they leave 4 or 5 pegs out. On the day, they left 5 pegs out, up to 37, because it's a notoriously poor area in the middle. Like the actual island chuck isn't great, but on the point of the island where I'd drawn, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant area. And for the section, phenomenal, if I'm completely honest. Really, really happy with where I'd drawn because of this space and the peg itself. So I honestly think, even with someone to my right, with how I've caught on the day, I don't think it made a difference. I mean, you sat so far out because the bank all to your left all tapers back. So for every angler, you're sort of like, you're probably 5 or 6 meters further, maybe 10 meters further out than the angler to your left all the time with how the bank goes. So 32 is like where it reaches the flat point. So I'm sat right out in front of everyone, right in the middle of the lake. So any fish moving into my peg from the left, they're always going to hit me first. I mean, there's no one to stop the fish getting to me. They're always going to sneak into my area, and that's the way it proved. I mean, I had a phenomenal day doing a few different things, and said that's what this video is going to be about, is the 2 methods that I employed on the day, or 3 methods, I suppose, being a flat method feeder, a flat alloy feeder at distance towards the island, so not against the island. I probably fished it about 10 meters off. Lovely flat bar comes off that island, so 10 meters off, which is what we're going to do today. I mean, we're Saturday, best bag in the world today, but it's the same sort of mentality. We're going to throw that feeder right into the abyss, and you're just after a handful of fish at the start, pretty much is the way you've got to treat it. It's not for me, and the way the fishing was, it's not a way of winning a match. It's a way of ticking over until fish actually rock up on your feed. I say, because I've drawn a carp area with plenty of carp potentially to be caught, although I did have a quick start on a pole and catch a couple, within half an hour I was on the rod, sitting there. I'm not going to say nice and patient, because you need to be busy. You need to be very active and make things happen. But doing that, I probably caught 5 or 6 fish, and some of them were big as well. I had one about 15 pound doing that. And it's the little things in terms of making your feeder as attractive and, what's the way of attention grabbing, I suppose, letting the fish know it's there. It's absolutely massive. I mean, you cannot have a plain boring feeder with just micros because you're not building a peg. If you're building a peg, great. You can keep on chucking, you can make that area good. If it was just a feeder match, or maybe more in the winter time when it's a bit cooler, building that peg will be massive. Keep chucking it, and you build a load of fish there, load of bait, makes things happen. The way I was going to do it, my pole was always so much more important. So the feeder was only ever going to be I probably had 20 casts at the most on it, so it was never getting a chance to build, because that bait was getting eaten most casts because there was lots and lots of fish in my bag. But as I say, it needs to be massively attractive. So in terms of the bait that you're using, firstly, my hook bait, really vivid. I want my hook bait to stand out. I've actually got my hook bait itself, the wafters that I use, they're in a little pot that has I chuck a handful of each in, and they're flavoured as well. Not because that flavour catches fish or anything like that, it's an attention grabber. It's another, with the sight and the smell of it, it's, oh, what's that? I'll have a look at that. And in this water that is really, really, I'm not going to say it's coloured, but it's a big high algae bloom. It's always very, very green, because it's so shallow, because it's such a big expanse of water. So things aren't very visible. So that smell element becomes massive. And then to accentuate that massively with the pellets themselves, I've already used pellets that are flavoured to start with the banoffee sticky pellets, which are absolutely phenomenal for making a really sticky pellet that smells nice. But even when preparing it, I just add as many lotions and potions as I possibly can, just to accentuate that smell, to make it so as soon as it goes in, the fish knows something's in the area. So what I'll add nearly half a bottle of the banoffee haze that should be added to it as a glug on top of it. I'm not into that. Half a bottle goes into the water to accentuate the sweetness. And on the day, I even put half a bottle of bait booster, but salted caramel stuff. Still massive high sugar content, lovely, sweet, smelly stuff that grabs the fish's attention. I mean, big thing for me that they were the ones that I grabbed just so the fish find it. So that's all I'm interested in, is these big carp. You can see them today, they're swimming all over the place, they're not on the bottom. So you need the attention of the plop of the feeder going in, then the smell of the feeder itself going down, find your bait, you get a quick bite. Because that's another thing that was really, really important, is quick casts. It's not about sitting and waiting like you would in the winter, maybe having a cast every 20 minutes. I want to be busy. It's that the smash of the feeder landing on the water, the smell of it, which I believe disappears really quickly, especially when it's windy. That going in, 5 minutes, back in, chuck it again. Make things happen. Be really, really active with your feeder fishing on here to make the most of that 90 minutes that you probably spend on it, maybe less. Depends how good that pole line's going to be. So on the day, the pole line was always going to be really good because of the time we fished as well. We fished later. We fished 1 till 6, did we? Yeah, we did. Fished 1 till 6. So it was always going to be apparent that the fish were going to come in onto your bait, whether it was your 8 mils that you're feeding or your pole line, or maybe even your edge in some cases. And that feed line wasn't going to be as important, which, say, on the day, perfect example. So great, cracked in a few big ones on that. Absolutely phenomenal sort of start. But then, as I said, we had to move on to that pole line, which is what we did. I moved back onto it probably 2 hours, 90 minutes in. Yeah, something like that. Moved on to my pole line, which really, really simple when it comes to basting. It is Pellet To King, simple as. There's nothing else to do. But I've been here a few times again. I'd fished a couple of qualifiers on here for golden reel qualifiers, and I say that practice session, and they'd all shown up exactly the same thing, in that it wasn't volumes of bait that were important, it's constant bait. So literally with our Fin Perfect pellets, I've got the 6 mil versions of them, which are a lovely Coppensy type pellet that breaks down a lot slower, makes loads and loads of noise. I just want constant feeding of them, not in big volumes, not feeding 30, 40 pellets. It's the attention grabbing again that is so important. So you have that non-stop 2, 3, maybe 5 pellets, borderline constant. I mean, there's never 10 seconds going without, unless I'm catching a fish, without that bait going in the peg, because it's about grabbing the attention of these great big wobbly things that just swim. That is literally what they do at Barson until there's an accumulation of bait, is these big lads just swim up and down non-stop, and you've always got these little pods of carp passing through, and you need to just grab their attention with the constant bait going in, however you're fishing, whether it's on the bottom or shallow, and you just non-stop, bait going in, grab their attention, and I think you can honestly not worry about how much accumulates on the bottom, because they just eat it all. And then you also have to think about those skimmers which are in here. There's thousands and thousands of skimmers, and because that is what they get fed, I'm not a big fan of Coppens type pellets for skimmers, but they eat them because they have to. They don't eat them, they get nothing. There's that many fish in here. So my line that I'm feeding constantly with these 6mm, I think actually on the day I caught 30 pound of accidental skimmers. I'd say skimmers, they're the bigger stamp as well. They're probably 2.5 pound that you just catch intermittently among your carp. Normally when your carp aren't in your peg, and you can just keep ticking on over, catching 3 skimmers, then a 10 pounder. Absolutely wonderful, wonderful day. And again, that is how it turned out. Once I moved on to my pole line with, it must have been, I probably had 3 hours of pole fishing at the end of the match. I've literally never came off those 2 rigs. I'm either fishing a rig on the bottom, which as you can see I'm doing, the lovely big positive rig, keeping things where I want it to be, being nice and patient. You get these lovely fizzes. It's like tench fishing. That's what it reminds me of, old school tench fishing, in that you see these fish coming into your peg with the fizzes that come up, and they literally track all the way to your bait and you get a bite. It just shows that they are literally clearing out everything on the bottom. So it's nice and patient with on the bottom, or massively popular tactic at Barson Lakes, and that is your slapping as well. So slapping that pellet over, it ties into the feeding thing of that constant noise. The fish are always inquisitive, always looking for new bait coming in. So but that slapping non-stop with a big heavy pellet. I like going a bit smaller than most. I like using a 6mm. I find that I probably missed less bites. It's a bit less cumbersome for the fish to eat. Just a little bit less angry than an 8mm that people do find very, very popular at this place. But for me, slapping a 6mm constantly nearly, very rarely letting it fish, because they're not doing that. They're not sitting in your bait feeding. They're just swimming, looking for that noise, seeing what's going on. Probably dictated by all the carp anglers you get on here that are very, very much into making a lot of commotion with feeding. That's all these fish are looking for, the next meal that's coming in, and the slapping does exactly that. So yes, I've had a wonderful day. Caught me early fish on the method feeder. I actually caught 2 early fish slapping on the day. I caught 2 carp immediately, then came off it on the method feeder, 5 fish on that. I was probably up to 50, 60 pound at that point. And then from then on, plain sailing on the pole, just fishing up and down. I think I ended up with 10 fish on the bottom, or 10 carp on the bottom, 10 carp shallow, handful of skimmers, and it did the job that we wanted to do. I actually ended up second in section now, due to a pole explosion at one point that cost me a fish. But I finished second in my section to Dale Shepherd. Dale's won the section with 210, I think Dale had. 210, 211. I was second in section and third in the match with 201, which fortunately other results, Tom drew in a tricky section, so the other results went in my favour, and yes, we were crowned the UK champion, which was the one that was missing off my CV. And now I need to find a new hobby. Fishing's completed. I think feeder fishing might be next. But yeah, those little things have made such a big difference, and it just shows whatever the event you're fishing, just putting that little bit of time in, finding them little key things, can make a huge difference when it comes to match day, and just catching those few extra fish and making sure you get job done in the best way possible.